Hello and welcome to another episode of A Fistful of Lenses. In this episode, we'll be taking a closer look at the zeiss jena pancolar 50mm f2. And this particular version I have here is in the exact mount. So, is the f2 version of the pancolar worthy of your camera bag? Well, let's find out together. So what are the technical specs of this old optic? The lens has 6 elements arranged in 4 groups, 6 aperture blades and a close focus of 50 centimeters. It weighs in at 184 grams and accepts 49mm filters. The focus throw is about 260 degrees. This particular version came to market around the year 1960. So what was the world like in 1960? Well, let's take a trip together down memory lane. In 1960, Chubby Checker's version of the song The Twist reaches number 1 in the US charts. And in the cinemas, the highest grossing film of the year was Spartacus. Also in 1960, it was scientifically proven that if you eat bacon twice a day, you reduce your chances of being a vegan by 100%. Anyway, that was the world in 1960, when you could buy this lens new in the shops. For this review, I'll be using the Sony A7R Mark III, and I'll be using the lens to shoot video and stills. And as always, the results will be shown straight out of camera, without any editing or color grading. So you get to see how the lens performs in its rawest form, with its strengths, weaknesses, and true character, undisguised. So let's start by looking at some images taken with the lens. And let's get a little more information regarding the pancolar 50mm f2. Firstly, the lens design is a double Gauss derivative. The earliest double Gauss lens design goes all the way back to 1888 and was patented by Alvan Graham Clark. This basic lens type is one of the most developed and widely used lens designs in photography, and is probably the most intensively studied lens formula in the 20th century. Other well-known lenses to use this design type are the Helios 44-2 and the Zeiss Biotar. The Biotar being the original progenitor of this lens. But it's the pancolar we're interested in this video. So the optical formula and the lens design itself are well understood. But what about the character of the lens? What about the bokeh? And what about the color rendition? Let's proceed. Firstly, let's answer that thorniest of questions. Can a lens developed over 65 years ago be sharp in the modern sense of the word? Well, it is surprisingly good when you nail focus, even when shot wide open, and stopped down to f8 is capable of producing a very sharp image. Of course, that's true of most lenses, but I am sure it could make a good portrait lens. Sharper it needs to be, but not clinical like many modern lenses tend to be, giving a flattering image with natural skin tones straight out of camera. But for me, the real strength of the lens is its color rendition. Zeiss Jena lenses have an excellent reputation in this regard, and the pancolar 50mm f2 is another Zeiss Jena lens that delivers on that promise. producing punchy, saturated reds, beautiful gentle blues and vibrant yellows. A veritable riot of colour, but managing to do it in a believable, natural looking way. And as an added bonus, it has an interesting bouquet, capable of producing a swirl reminiscent of the Helios 44-2. So let's take a look at some video shot with the lens, and then I'll give you my final thoughts on the Pancolar 50mm f2. So I'm not going to recommend a 65-year-old nifty 50 as a good choice to shoot wildlife with, but it does give us an opportunity to explore the character, strengths and weaknesses of this old optic. The colour palette is good, and also the bouquet of the lens, which is quirky enough to make for some interesting photos. It can create a swirl that helps draw the eye into the image. And lastly, for a lens from the time of the mods and rockers, it's surprisingly sharp when shot wide open. As a downside, it is a bit unusual looking, and adapted to a modern mirrorless camera, it does look a little odd. Not something that worries me, as I'm not into the habit of going around asking people if they like the look of my gear. Lastly, the grease in the helicoid of zeiss jena lenses hasn't aged well, often causing focusing issues. So what are my final thoughts on using a lens that many would regard as a museum piece? Well, in this world of computer-designed, clone-like, mass-produced products, a vintage lens like this 65-year-old Pancolar can bring a bit of individuality to your photography and cinematography. And for me, that's something to value. So thank you for joining me as I took a closer look at the Pancolar 50mm f2. But I've been stuck indoors for too long. Time to get back out there in the real world. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and ring that bell, and then who knows, maybe we'll see each other out there in the real world, snapping away happily with a fist full of lenses. Until next time, bye for now.